Welcome to Unapologetically Reborn. I'm Cody, the co-host. This is...
My name is Alicia Lynch. I want you to imagine a scene. You're sitting across from someone who actually cares about you. Maybe they just said something kind. Maybe they're just looking at you with that soft, quiet, I see you. By all accounts, this is a good moment. But inside your body, a siren is going off. Your chest is tight. Your palms are sweating. You have this overwhelming urge to either pick a fight or run out the front door. You feel like a total mess. You think to yourself, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be happy? Today we're going to talk about why your body is treating a hug like a heart attack.
Fab4 Expression presents the Unapologetically Reborn podcast hosted by Cody Fullin and Alicia Lynch. This podcast is meant to support awareness and reflection, but it is not a substitute for professional mental health care. If you need support, please reach out to a licensed professional or a trusted resource. A downloadable workbook can be found by visiting our website www.unapologeticallyreborn.com.
Welcome back to Wheel of Looming Death.
This is the game that we all play. Well, I shouldn't say we all, but many of us with anxiety, so this should probably sound familiar. I hope that y'all had a great Mother's Day. Mine was alright. It was good and it was okay, I guess. This is what $240 gets you in Eau Claire. A nice frizzed out, straight, kinky perm. It's pretty sorry, especially when they don't answer you back about how pathetic your hair is. But then we went to see The Devil Wears Prada 2. I know this isn't about movie reviews, but
5 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys think about it before you go to the movie theater because
This is the one time you go to the movie once and you would wait till it goes on a streaming service.
Yeah, let's just put it this way. It wasn't...
First one was a lot better.
It was cool to see what happened a little bit. They briefly touched on the characters. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's Netflix worthy. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
The first one was amazing. The second one, I felt like after all of this time, they had to put it together. They just kind of threw it together, and here you go. Anyway, moving on. Sorry.
Like I said before, we all do movie reviews. Welcome back to the Looming Death game show. This game show is running 24/7 in the back of every trauma survivor's brain. Shock. The rules are simple. Your partner does something completely normal. We spin the wheel. Woo! And your nervous system decides exactly how you're going to be destroyed today.
Oof.
Hey, it's like Wheel of Fortune, but even worse. With no prizes.
Oh, the game you play in your head. God.
Your partner is quiet in the car. They're literally just trying to remember if they turned off the coffee pot, but your brain spins the wheel. Woo! And the wheel landed on. They have realized you are fundamentally unlovable. Ooh, shocker. Boy. They are secretly packing their bags, and you will die alone in a house full of unself-help books. Man, didn't even read one. Congratulations, contestant number 1. Your cortisol level just spiked 400%. Let's spin again for contestant 2. Woo! Your partner doesn't put an emoji at the end of a text message. They just send word, okay, and period. Great. Wow, you landed on the grand prize. The text message period means they are furious. at you for something you said in 2018. You'd think they'd got over it, but hey, some people. The relationship is a sham and a catastrophic breakup conversation is looming at 6 p.m., right before dinner. What a nice person. You win a full day of stomach knots and an inability to swallow your lunch. Look how exhausting that is. Ugh.
Let's talk about exhausting. All right. So today, we're going to talk about relationship advice or finding the right person.
Or movies.
Sorry about that. We're going to talk about the physics of your nervous system. I'm going to try to explain why for some of us, those of us, many of us who grew up in chaos, safety can actually feel like a threat, and why your brain is currently misidentifying love as a predator. Remember, this can go both ways. You can go from longing for something and feeling safe to the other side where you just don't feel safe, even though it is safe. To understand why you feel like a mess, we have to look at the war happening inside your head right now. There's two main characters that you need to know. Character number one is called your amygdala. This is your body's smoke detector. We've discussed this before. It has no concept of time. It only knows two settings, safe or danger. Character number two, this is your hippocampus. Think of this character as your brain's internal librarian. The librarian's only job is to take your experiences, put a date stamp on them, and file them away in the past. So now there's a war that's happening with the amygdala and the hippocampus. When a trauma survivor experiences love-related anxiety, it is fundamentally a problem of time tracking inside the brain. So the normal mechanic in a brain without CPTSD, a memory is treated like a book on a shelf. The hippocampus acts as the archivist. It logs the event, attaches a specific date stamp. For an example, this happened in 1998, and then it closes the file. Because it has a date stamp, the rest of your brain knows the event is over. You can remember it, but your body doesn't physically relive that experience. The trauma mechanic. Under chronic stress or childhood instability, high levels of the stress hormone cortisol physically disrupt the hippocampus. When this happens, it loses its ability to date stamp memories. Instead of being filed away on a shelf, these traumatic memories of unpredictable love, volatility, or rejection stay open as live files on the main desk of your brain. The collapse, the amygdala, your smoke detector. It does not understand time. It only understands now. When your adult partner does something that vaguely mimics an old file, like a change in tone, a quiet day, a direct gaze, the amygdala reads the wide open, unstamped file. It cannot tell the difference between a memory and a current threat. So if you fast forward to today, let's say you're sitting with a safe partner. They look at you with deep affection. Your brain librarian looks at the open files on the desk and it sees the old chaos and it panics. This is time collapse. You aren't remembering anxiety. You're literally living in a moment where your 8-year-old self is standing inside your adult body trying to protect you from a fire that went out decades ago. You aren't crazy. You're time traveling. So let's look at the limbic friction. This is the open loop system and the nervous system envy. Limbic friction explains the physical buzzing, irritation, or panic that you feel when you're physically close to a partner who's completely relaxed. Human beings are mammals. We all know this. Mammal nervous systems are open loop systems. Your digestive system and your circulatory system are self-contained, which are closed loops. Your limbic system, your emotional center, is wired to mirror and match the nervous system of those around you to establish safety. This automatic matching is called limbic resonance. Then there's the synchronization failure. When a trauma survivor sits next to a regulated, calm partner, like I said, tries to connect, the partner is broadcasting a low-frequency calm signal. This is what's known as the green zone. but the survivor's nervous system is hardwired to broadcast a high-frequency vigilance signal. This is known as the red zone. The friction. Because the survivor's system cannot easily match or drop into that foreign state of calm, the two opposing frequencies, they clash. This clash creates a static. It physically feels like restless legs, a buzzing under the skin, or a sudden unprovoked surge of anger towards the partner. Nervous system envy. Okay, so your brain hates confusion, so it creates a narrative to explain the physical static. It looks at the partner's peace and experiences what's known as subconscious envy. The brain translates the contrast as a threat. If they're relaxed, they're not scanning for danger. If they're not scanning for danger, we're exposed. Then you pick a fight to force the nervous system to match your high alert state, because matching in chaos feels safer to you than mismatching in peace. So limbic friction is the sound of your survival system trying to translate a language it was never taught to speak, the language of a quiet room. You're not mad at your partner for being relaxed. Your nervous system is just terrified of the silence. What do you think of that?
I'd rather have silence.
Yeah?
Then I would have to deal with someone who's angry all the time, and oh Lord.
Okay. Well, that's good. I understand that. So you enjoy the peace. I think everybody does.
Yes, I'd rather have, instead of psychologically, I would rather be peaceful, and my hippocampus would rather ignore the person. Because my library, if I would have to get yelled at by one woman, my Lord. My hippocampus, my librarian, would have shut off my brain by then. That's for sure.
So this is the point that we're trying to get to, is we're trying to learn how to get to that peace. Now, when I talk about the survival maps and these old patterns, I know a lot of us feel guilty. We might think that we don't want to sit here, we don't want to blame our parents for everything, and that's not how I want this to come up. I agree with you. Blame keeps us looking backward. Sovereignty moves us forward. We're not putting anyone on trial. We're performing maintenance on our own machinery. So try to remember that. Think of it like this. Imagine that you inherited a beautiful vintage 1950s car from your family. It's a classic. But the brakes are touchy, the steering pulls to the left, and the engine overheats if you go over 40 miles an hour. You don't blame the person who handed you the keys. They were just driving the car they were given.
So no grease lightning for me.
Yeah. They didn't build the engine. But if you want to drive the car on a modern highway today, you have to look under the hood and acknowledge its limitations. Our anxiety is a hand-me-down nervous system. Our parents, our grandparents, and our ancestors had to be hypervigilant to survive in their environments. They passed that high alert setting down to us because it kept the bloodline alive. It's evolutionary momentum. But here's the problem. In those old homes, love was a slot machine. We've discussed this. Sometimes it paid out with kindness, and sometimes it paid out with chaos. Your brain becomes addicted to the massive hit of dopamine, and that comes from the relief after a scare. When you find a stable partner, the car stops overheating. There's no scare. Because there's no scare, there's no massive dopamine rush of relief. Peace can feel flat. And to a trauma survivor, believe it or not, flatness can feel exactly like abandonment. You're not bored, you're in dopamine detox. So let's figure out exactly which system error your body's running. Let's take a quick 3-question quiz. Listen to my voice and pick A, B, or C. Ready? Question 1. This can also be found in the workbook for today. Question 1. When your partner looks you deeply in the eyes and says something genuinely loving, do you A, look away immediately and check your phone? B, feel a heavy sense of panic, wondering what you did wrong? C, feel restless and itchy like you need to get up and leave the room? Question 2. The morning after a truly beautiful, connected, intimate date, do you usually A, feel suddenly annoyed by your partner's small habits and want space? B, spend the morning obsessing over whether you said something stupid? C, feel a strange numbness or boredom like the relationship has lost its spark? Let's look at your blueprint. If you chose mostly A's, chances are you're dealing with the predator gaze translation error, because eye contact and attention meant danger possibly in your childhood. Your system translates, I see you, I've caught you. If you chose mostly B, then you're probably in a time collapse. Your internal librarian left the files open, and you're reacting to your partner today as if they were the person that hurt you decades ago. If you chose mostly C, you're more than likely in dopamine detox. Stability feels terrifying, quiet to you. You're in withdrawal from the high-stakes chaos of your past. If you took the quiz and you realize that your system is misfiring, take a deep breath. You're not a mess. You're a pioneer. You're trying to build a life in a territory that your ancestors never conquered, the territory of safety. This week, I want you to try to practice the 3-foot rule. When that limbic friction starts buzzing under your skin, don't pick a fight, don't run. Look at your partner and say something like, my nervous system is running a glitch right now. If you think that sounds like you're out of your tree and you don't feel comfortable with that, come up with something else. I need a minute, or excuse me for a second, or whatever you feel comfortable with. Please go to Instagram and Facebook. If you feel comfortable, post for this episode right now and drop your letter, A, B, or C in the comments. Let's look at our blueprints together. If you're a type B or a C listener, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We laugh about it because if we don't, we'll cry. But the biological truth is that our brains are literally addicted to looking for the threat. When you grow up in chaos, scanning for looming death was a full-time job that kept you safe. If you predicted the worst-case scenario, you couldn't be surprised by it. But when you carry that game show into a stable adult relationship, you weren't protecting yourself anymore. You're not protecting yourself at all. You're terrorizing yourself over a text message. You're treating a quiet partner like an oncoming train. You're absolutely not the only person that does this. In fact, this is the exact struggle that most unifying experiences that most people with trauma or CPTSD survivors go through. The fact that you feel unorganized and scattered while trying to process is actually proof that the mechanism is working exactly as it's described. When you try to logically analyze a topic that your body perceives as a threat, your brain activity, it scrambles your focus to try and force you to look away from the vulnerability. Why does it feel like you're alone, you ask? The shame silence. People rarely talk about the fact that they want to vomit after a perfectly good date, or that they feel a wave of hatred toward a partner who was just being kind, because it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to a person with a standard childhood, but survivors keep it a secret. The cultural lie. We talked about this in one of our episodes. Media tells us that love brings immediate peace and clarity when it could bring panic and confusion. Instead, survivors assume that they're the problem rather than realizing that their threat response was triggered. When you have a history of trauma like CPTSD or growing up as an adult child of an alcoholic or something of this nature, love doesn't just feel like a flutter. It can act as a constant stressor that keeps your nervous system in a state of high alert. Here's a detailed breakdown, and let's discuss how love can keep somebody dysregulated. Now remember, everybody's different, but here's some common ones. The familiarity trap, the chaos loop. So when I was researching, this is a lot of what came up. For many survivors, a calm relationship feels unsafe because it's foreign. Your nervous system was programmed in childhood to associate closeness with unpredictability, which makes complete sense when you think about it. If you didn't know what your parent was going to be like Monday, they were different Tuesday, somebody else Wednesday, somebody different on, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, what have you, it only makes sense that your brain thinks this way. So how does it get dysregulated? When you find a partner who's inconsistent or emotionally unavailable, it triggers your detective mode, your hypervigilance. Your brain stays in a sympathetic nervous system state, your fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, constantly scanning for signs of abandonment. You're not in love, you're in a state of active survival, more than likely. The second one, intermittent reinforcement, the dopamine roller coaster. This is the gambling effect of love. If a partner is hot and cold, giving you affection one day and withdrawing the next, it creates, remember what we discussed, intermittent reinforcement. These definitions will also be in the workbook for you to use as the language. How does this dysregulate? When they pull away, your cortisol stress hormone spikes. When they finally come back, your brain gets a massive hit of dopamine. This extreme high and low prevents your nervous system from ever reaching a ventral vagal state. Now, the ventral vagal state is the state of safety and social connection. You're stuck in a cycle of withdrawal and craving. The threat of intimacy, the vulnerability hangover. I think it was Breen Brown that discusses this. True intimacy requires letting your guard down. He's just getting over a cold.
Yeah. So if you hear me coughing, that's on me.
Yeah, he's been sick. But he's trying to be a warrior through the episode. For someone with trauma, letting the guard down was historically when they got hurt. How does this dysregulate you? Even in a healthy relationship, a nice dinner or a deep conversation can trigger a vulnerability hangover. Your body perceives the closeness as a threat to your autonomy or your safety, causing you to suddenly spike into anxiety, pick a fight, or shut down, disassociation, just to create distance and regulate back to your baseline of being alone and unseen, because this is what you're used to. Self-abandonment as a regulation. To keep the peace in a relationship, you might find yourself fawning, ignoring your own needs to please the other person. How does this dysregulate? Every time you suppress your true feelings to avoid conflict, you're sending a signal to your body that you're not safe with yourself. This internal betrayal keeps your heart rate elevated and your mind racing because your inner child is effectively being ignored again, this time by you. Projection. Remember we discussed that on the Prince and the Delusion?
Yep.
All right. We often fall in love with the potential of a person rather than the reality. How does this dysregulate us? You're essentially living in two worlds. The reality of the relationship, which could be painful, and the fantasy in your head or the delusion. Trying to reconcile these two worlds is exhausting for the brain. So it creates something called cognitive dissonance. This is a high stress state that leads to brain fog, fatigue, and physical tension. Okay? So dysregulated love feels like longing. Regulated love feels like belonging. If they feel like they're constantly on or waiting for the other shoe to drop, you're not experiencing a deep soul connection. You're experiencing a nervous system emergency. So we're going to look at a tool for this. You doing okay?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay, so.
If I make those facials or whatever, I'm trying not to cough.
If you need to cough, you need to cough.
Uh-huh.
Let's look at a tool. Okay, the next time that you're with someone and you feel this intense surge of anxiety, I want you to pause. Take one hand, place it firmly over your chest. Take your other hand, place it on your stomach. Okay, take a slow 4-second inhale and exhale slowly. Ask your body these specific questions. Question number 1, the heart rate check. Is my heart racing because I'm excited to see this person? Or is it racing because I'm terrified of making a mistake? Remember, excitement opens up your chest. Terror makes you want to curl your shoulders forward. Question 2, the muscular check. Look at your posture right now. Are your jaw muscles clenched? Are your toes curling in inside your shoes? Are your shoulder blades pulling up towards your ears? True love allows your muscles to drop. Trauma love makes your body prepare for physical impact. Question 3, the safety versus performance check. Do you feel like I'm allowed to just sit here and exist? Or do you feel like you're on a stage performing for your survival? If you feel like you have to say the perfect thing to keep your partner happy, you're not experiencing a soul connection. You're more than likely experiencing a nervous system emergency. Anxious love feels like longing. Regulated love feels like belonging. If a relationship always feels like a high-stakes rescue mission, your system is running a childhood survival program. You're allowed to step back, take a breath, reset the clock. So how do we remap the system? That's the next thing we need to discuss. How can we move forward to not experiencing these things anymore? Okay, the advice: when you feel the physical buzzing or sudden irritation while sitting next to a safe partner, do not force yourself to stay there and look relaxed. Do not pick a fight to release the tension. The action: intentionally create a physical space. Move to a chair across the room. Go brush your teeth, wash your face, go for a 5-minute walk, excuse yourself for a few minutes, whatever it may be. Creating space in a safe relationship isn't a sign of failure. It's active maintenance. Tell your partner that you need a few minutes. I'm going to sit over here for 10 minutes to let my baseline cool down, if you feel comfortable enough to state that. If not, well then come up with whatever works for you. But this teaches your body that you can enter intimacy and that you can exit it safely without being trapped in panic. Titrating intimacy, the chemistry method. So in chemistry,
I was not good at that.
it's not an easy class. If you dump 2 reactive liquids together all at once, what do you get? You get an explosion. You have to add them drop by drop. Do the same thing with love. The action: if a 4-hour high-intensity romantic date triggers a massive vulnerability hangover the next morning, you shorten the window of connection. Go on a 1-hour coffee date or practice 15 minutes of deep eye-to-eye conversation, followed by a 30-minute of parallel play. When I say parallel play, I mean you're both in the same room, but you're separated. You're reading separate books, or you're looking at your phones. You're feeding your nervous system safety in small, digestible bites, so it doesn't gag on closeness. So the fact check script correcting the time collapse. The advice: when the wheel of looming death spins inside your head because a text message lacked an emoji, you must ground your brain in the literal calendar year to fight the time collapse. How do you do this? Speak out loud to your physical environment to force your brain librarian to date stamp the moment. Look around the room. Say, my name is Slim Shady. I'm in my apartment. The year is 2026. The person who texted me is not in my past.
I knew I should have shut that phone off.
I'm safe in this room right now. By using your actual voice to name the current physical reality, you force the amygdala to stand down and let the prefrontal cortex bring your logic back online. Expanding the window of tolerance, savoring the boring. The advice: because survivors are addicted to the high-stakes dopamine relief of chaos, peace feels dangerously boring. You have to actively train your brain to tolerate safety. The action: when you feel that urge to pick a fight just to feel something, pause. Notice the quiet. When things are quiet and consistent, your inner security guard gets restless. Sit in the quiet for 2 minutes. Try to sit there for 2 minutes before you try to fix or stir up anything. And say to yourself, this isn't boring. This is peaceful. This isn't abandonment. This is stability. You're stretching your nervous system's capacity to hold comfort. The next time your body tries to tell you that panic is the same thing as passion, I want you to remember this check-in. You don't have to audition for a safe seat at the table. So, drop your shoulders, let your stomach completely relax. If your system is screaming right now, look at the tight chest and say, thank you for watching the door, but we're allowed to rest now. Because when we don't check in with our bodies, we let our survival brain take the wheel. And when that happens, we end up right back to where we started, staring at our phones, overanalyzing a text message, and spinning the old familiar wheel. Let's look at what happens when the inner panic takes over completely. We begin to play our favorite subconscious game, the wheel of looming death.
Woo!
Right. Not so woo when it's in your head. Just remember, you're not a hopeless mess. You're a pioneer in your family bloodline. You're trying to build a life in a territory that your ancestors never conquered, the territory of safety. This week, when the looming death wheel starts spinning, or when that limbic friction starts buzzing under your skin, don't pick a fight and don't run out the door. Put your hand on your chest like we discussed, practice the 3-foot rule, and take your mat back. If this episode spoke to your inner time traveler today, please share it with another survivor who's trying to heal. This is not something that's going to happen in one moment, in one try, in one day, in 1 week. This is going to have to happen repetitively, and eventually you will train your brain to get all of the trash out. And basically, you're taking out the garbage, and you will get there, but it's a process. Remember that, so don't get agitated with yourself. You're allowed to build a safe life, even if you have to do it with a racing heart. Please head over to Instagram or Facebook, post your A, B, or C in the comment section. With this, we'd like to remind you that there's a downloadable book for this episode, just as there is every episode, on www.unapologeticallyreborn.com. I stayed up till 5 a.m. making it, so please utilize it. We're also, we did place a monthly podcast schedule, if you're curious about that. And we're also working on some wallpapers that you can use. They're really cool for your phone. And then we're doing some checklists for various topics, and they'll be up on the website shortly. But we're doing some maintenance because we realize that our website is kind of a mess, and it could definitely use some upgrades. Please also know that you can find us on all the media platforms, so feel free to add us as a friend, follow, or subscribe. And something really incredible happened to me yesterday, and I'm going to add that clip. I wanted to share that moment with you. I'm going to add the clip after the show if you're interested. I hope that you have a fabulous week. Do you have anything to add?
Yes, and if you want to have comments, you can put any comments. If you even say if I'm annoying going woo all the time, just put woo, and yeah.
Well, we're just trying to add a little fun to a conversation that's kind of difficult and not necessarily, the funnest topic to discuss. But utilizing these exercises, learning this material is how we get out of these loops and how we stop irritating ourselves and how we can start to be regulated and enjoy our relationships and stop the crazy pattern. Just remember that. Anything else?
No.
You have any questions, comments, or concerns? Suggestions for the show? Maybe you'd like to be a guest on the show, you have a topic for the show, or you want to discuss something further, please feel free to email us. Everything's found on the website. It's also found on the workbook. All of our contact information is in there. Thank you very much for listening to Unapologetically Reborn. This is where survival ends and choices begin. Hi, my name is Alicia Lynch. I'm a co-host on Unapologetically Reborn. I wanted to share this moment with you, and I'm hoping that it can be an inspirational moment for somebody that suffers from a traumatic background or is afraid to take chances or feels like they can't achieve something. So I'm not quite sure if you know the story. Some of you may, some of you may not. But when I was a kid, I was born in 1975, and being left-handed was detrimental. It was completely unacceptable. So my first year in school, in kindergarten, I didn't know how to tie my shoe. And my teacher would get really upset with me and tell me that I was dumb. And that message I carried my entire life. And as my elementary career moved, I wasn't allowed to participate in some of the classes. For an example, reading class. Reading class, I had to go to Title I. And in that, stage, they would take me into a little room. A lady would come, she would pull me out of class, and she'd take me in this little room. And in that little room, I would have these sheets of paper. And I would have to, depend on the week, draw this or draw that. But basic concept was use my right hand. So instead of learning, to be honest, I don't remember how I learned how to read or who taught me how to read. What I do know is I read very well, and it was something that came easy to me. And nobody would listen. So the kids in the class were reading a pig book. I don't remember if it was Charlotte's Web, what it was. But I remember I picked it up. It was Mrs. Smith's class. I picked it up and I said, why can't I be in this class? I can read the book. And she's like, no, you can't. And yeah, I can read the book. So I demonstrated to her that I could read the book. But I wasn't allowed to be in the class with the other kids, as I had to go with this woman and work with my right hand. So, side note, in my background, my safe haven was the library. I used to play with this little girl named Amy, and her mom took us to the library. I got my first library card. I believe it was first or second. I want to say it was first grade. Anyway, I fell in love with the library. And I would ride my bike there. I would get as many books as I could check out, as many books as I could carry in my backpack as I drove home on my bike. And that was huge for me. And then fast forward, I wrote this book, like I said, Unapologetically Unseen. I published it 2 weeks ago. Put my heart and soul in this book. Very important to me. And it's about growing up around addiction and how this can become problematic in your adult life, the behaviors that kept you alive as a child, and how they can basically destroy you as an adult. On a whim, I decided that I would write to my local library and ask them if they'd be interested in looking at my book. So I waited for the reply. I got a response. Here's my proof. I just received an email. Maybe 8 minutes ago. The library accepted my book. They want to feature my book. And that means that from 50 different libraries, somebody can request my book, borrow my book, and read my book. And that little kid, that little girl that will go to the library and look at all these books. And it's crazy to me because that place that saved me is the place where I live now. This, I made it. And to be told that you're dumb or that you have some type of deficit because you're different or you're unique in some way And then to have your work that you've worked so hard on, that you put your heart and soul in, that meant so much to you, and to have it be on library shelves for other people to see, it's amazing. You guys, if you've struggled with anything, adverse childhood stuff, or you thought you weren't good enough, or you've been in a domestic relationship with somebody that was bad, whatever it may be, and you didn't think that you could accomplish something, I hope that you'll put some merit into what I'm saying. Keep going. Keep trying. You can do this. Thank you so much for letting me share that.